Migration and Displacement, which is actually organized by IGAD and its partners. And also, I wish also to extend a warm welcome to all of you in this beautiful city and vibrant city of Nairobi. Nairobi actually is hosting this conference for the second time because already we have held two others 2 years back. Also, our profound to the people and the government of the Republic of Kenya. May I also, on behalf of IGAD, renew my hearty congratulations to President Ruto, who assumed also the presidency just also ago. Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, the IGAD region is hosting one of the most complex migration dynamic in the world, with approximately 4.5 million refugees and asylum seekers, and also around 12.3 million internally displaced. Currently, IGAD region also hosts 6.3 million international migrants, which constitutes 2.2% of its total population. It is worth noting that our region has the largest share of international migrants in the continent, where IGAD is part of it and also contribute to a significant percentage of it. Ladies and gentlemen, the role of this scientific research in finding durable solutions to the problem facing our region and the globe is well established, and also providing the scientific knowledge which are also essential for evidence-based policies aimed at responding to displacement and large-scale population mobility due to conflict, drought, and climate change, among others. The fact that IGAD and its partners are committed to providing the necessary platform for exchange of research finding, practice, and experience among scholars in the region and beyond clearly recognize their contribution to advance sustainable development in the region and beyond. The last two scientific conferences have brought together a large number of researchers, academic, decision makers, practitioners, and development partners. The issue also research and the idea floated in this conference have sharpened our understanding of the complex social, political, and environmental realities surrounding the migration, mobility, and displacement in our region. That's why also that we continue to organize a regional platform, and this one being our third, and also determined to continue with the subsequent ones. Indeed, this conference also marks yet another milestone for IGAD towards achieving our new direction, where we are in the driving seat and also evidence-based policy making initiative in the region. Colleagues and ladies and gentlemen, IGAD continues to embrace and support the continuous development of a systematic research agenda that credibly inform our future policy direction in all areas, including sustainable approach to managing mixed migration and forced displacement. As a matter of fact, most of our academic institutions and research centers have a long way to go in terms of shaping the national, regional, and global policies through practical need basis and demand-driven research. Moreover, there is also a lot to be done to bring our university and research establishment together to learn from each other and also contribute to durable solutions for the region multiple challenge. With this in mind, IGAD also has established in April 21 the IGAD Regional University Forum and also the IGAD Council of Higher Education in Jigjiga, Ethiopia. As I have mentioned elsewhere, I'm also happy to note that the university forming the board of IGAD Council of Higher Education are today well represented in the technical steering committee of this conference. I'm also glad to realize that most of them are women scholars, which also reflects IGAD commitment to enhancing the role of women in our programs, though I know still need to do more in this regard. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this conference of today, inclusion and social cohesion, connecting research, data and policy, will articulate that we at IGAD and its development partners have been doing over the last several years, notably in the implementation of the Djibouti Declaration on inclusive education for refugees and skill development, as well as the Kampala Declaration on inclusive access to livelihood, job for refugees, returnees, and host community. It also speaks directly to the renewed national, regional, and international commitment expressed in the Comprehensive Refugee Response Framework called CRRF, the Global Compact for Refugees, the GCR, the Global Compact on Migration, the GCM, as well as our different policies, strategies, including our IGAD 5-year strategy 21-25. Despite the adverse respect of the COVID-19, IGAD also has attained significant outputs in the social integration dimension, including the provision of physical support to cross-border community along the borders of Djibouti, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia. Endorsement also that we have endorsed our protocol of free movement of persons and transhumans in 2019 in Khartoum, which also bring in migration at the center of the policy debate. Ladies and gentlemen, the issue of social cohesion and integration of refugees into the host community are critical area of research and generation. Therefore, we must also prioritize scientific inquiries on the dynamic on the regional mobility, migration and displacement, and the socio-economic transformation. In this regard, we wish to call upon our researchers from the region, practitioners, and also our policy makers and beyond to work hand in hand and also to inform each other on the latest development, not only on migration and displacement, but also on sustainable development with a focus on how to improve stability, regional integration, and also peaceful coexistence among the people. We are confident that this conference will not only focus on the problem in migration and displacement, but also turn into the potential solution that should be adopted. We also look forward to reviewing and taking up to the practical and actionable policy recommendation that we put forward in the research papers on how IGAD and its member state also can comprehensively support migrants and refugees by, among others, measures integrating migrants and refugees into the national development strategy and service provision system. Before I conclude, allow me also to reiterate my profound appreciation to the government of Germany for providing the necessary financial and technical support to IGAD for the first regional conference of this one. I would like also to thank the conference steering committee and sincerely for their invaluable technical support they have extended to this conference. Also, further gratitude to IOM, our main partners on the issue of migration, UNHCR, our main partners on the issue of refugees, the World Bank, the EU, and all development partners that have worked with us in making this scientific conference one of the platforms for dialogue, experience sharing, and also opportunity for shared vision and collective strategy to alleviate the problem facing our region. I wish also to wish successful deliberation, and also I look forward to receiving the report and also the outcome of this important conference, and also please be assured for our continuous support from our end. I would like to thank you very much, and merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Madam Director. And I think we've heard for ourselves. We need to hear from our researchers, development partners, our member government on the practical solutions, potential solutions, practical actions, so that we are able to improve stability, regional integration in our region. And I think that is why we're here. With that, I would like to welcome His Excellency Ambassador Sebastian, the representative of our development partners, and the Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany to Kenya, who is also representing the Swedish International Development Cooperation. Ambassador, welcome. A round of applause for Ambassador. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this warm welcome, and good morning, everybody. First of all, greetings to the Director of the IGAD Health and Social Development Division, Madame Fathia Aiwan, who pronounced my name with such a nice French accent, Sebastian. Your Excellency, Dr. Fatuma Adan, IGAD Head of Mission in Kenya, representative of the Kenyan government, I think, that will join us a little bit later, and the Honorable Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Makerere University, Head of Human Rights and Peace Center, Dr. Zara Nampewo, all the distinguished delegates from the IGAD member states that are here, all the representatives from the African Union Commission, regional economic communities, development partners, World Bank, Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, United Nations Agency, IOM, UNHCR, ILO, UNFP, all the representatives from universities, from research, from academia, civil society of the IGAD region and beyond, my friends and colleagues, and KfW, with whom we support this conference together. I wish you a very good morning, and I'm very happy to be here. I just have to open my text. And then, let me first start by congratulating you for putting this together for the third time. Germany, from the very beginning, was a strong supporter of this platform, not only because we are a long-standing partner of IGAD since its invention or in its creation, but also because especially this subject of migration and displacement is very important for us as a partner of this region, but also as one of the political partners within the European Union. The theme of this year's conference, Inclusion and Social Cohesion, Connecting Research, Data and Policy, is very timely. We are just moving out of COVID, but it's not that the world is quieter since then. It's the contrary, more or less. So we have growing inequalities, we have rising food prices, inflation, political crisis, and I would say facing the fifth drought or the fifth raining season that does not happen in this region, an unprecedented climate crisis as well. And this is just 1 week before we start the negotiations in Sharm el-Sheikh. And in this regard, I think also that this conference is a very, very important contribution. Particular attention is needed to be paid to some of the most vulnerable members of society. And these are the migrants, displaced persons, and in this very special group, I would say a special focus also on women and children is needed. In this region here, it was said earlier, almost 5 million refugees, 13.5 million IDPs, living here, millions of migrants on the move, and there's a lot of humanitarian assistance needed, but also not only an ad hoc solution to the dire needs that are there, but also more durable solutions are needed. And I think in this regard, the input that you can create from academia in comparing what works, what does not work, and developing also very concrete policy recommendations is very, very important for us from the political side. So, as I said earlier, we are a long-term supporter of the project that is called SIMPI, Strengthening IGAD Migration Policy Project, implemented by GIZ. And I just would like to highlight some of the achievements so far. So last week, IGAD convened a meeting here in Nairobi as well to take stock of the implementation of the Kampala Declaration. One of these objectives is the economic inclusion of refugees, returnees, and host communities to enhance their self-reliance. Secondly, the cash for community cohesion in the Kenya-Ethiopian cross-border town Moyale. 1,600 vulnerable households received cash transfers for participation in community cohesive activities like joint town cleaning. And then I would like to highlight the IGAD Teacher Training Initiative equipped more than 600 secondary school teachers in refugee settings in Ethiopia, Sudan, and Uganda with skill sets to ensure refugee children have access to high quality education. And I would like to mention that I visited the Dadaab refugee complex yesterday for the first time. I just arrived in Kenya in August, and it was a very deep learning experience for me to see how the Kenyan authorities, the international organizations, but also the local authorities are trying to cope with the situation. And we have there now a constant arrival of 200 to 300, probably sometimes 400, mostly Somali refugees fleeing the drought and also the security situation. Nobody knows how these figures will develop in the next weeks and months. So the one thing that we have to do now is to prepare, I think, for this situation. And the UNHCR High Commissioner Grandi was here last week. He held very important talks with the Kenyan government, but also in Somalia with the Somali government and with the donor community. And I think from the German side, we are there to try our best to help in this situation. There was also one thing that struck me in the exchange with some of the refugees. That's the importance of education. One of the refugees told me that only 3% are going beyond secondary school education. For you, it might not be a surprise because you're working in this field night and day, day and night. For me, it was almost a shock to see this, that there are no opportunities, and one of the only things that they have is also a German program that is called DAFI, and he highlighted this very much, and I think my colleague Florian Reli and myself, we will report back to Berlin how important these sort of programs are in order to give an opportunity to these generations of refugees to come out of this misery. And the second point that struck me was, and that was mentioned several times during this visit, that the refugee communities that are already there for quite a while and that don't have much and that don't get much are very willing to share what they get with the new arrivals, because there is such a high degree of solidarity within the refugee community in Dadaab that the families that get their ratios once a month are giving parts of these food, oil, and items to the new arrivals, and I think that we can learn a lot from this sense of solidarity. And I was really struck by this. The third point was the importance to help also the hosting communities, because they are also paying a price for hosting the refugees. But what we've seen there, and the local authorities accompanied us during the visit, was a very high willingness from the communities there also to play their part. But also they need support. They need support by us, by the donors, by the central government here in Kenya. And I think that's really important, that we, especially in the case of Dadaab, talking about these three different groups, the refugees that are already there for a long time, the new arrivals, and the hosting community, and try to develop a strategy to bring all these groups together. So what I would like to stress here is that we as the German government, we will remain committed to support you, IGAD, as an intergovernmental organization that is so important to promote regional integration and peaceful coexistence of all its citizens through dialogue and collaboration, and also scientific collaboration, which is so important here. And I think IGAD has demonstrated a remarkable leadership in the last years, and also initiative in formulating progressive and courageous policies with regard to migration and displacement. You already mentioned the Kampala and Djibouti Declaration, but also the Global Compact on Migration, the Global Compact on Refugees, where IGAD and the IGAD member states played a very, very important role in the negotiations and in the endorsement. So we are not only supporting IGAD as an institution, but of course we are supporting the member states of IGAD individually. I just would like to highlight one regional project that is called Better Migration Management, that is co-financed by the European Union and our Ministry for Cooperation. And there we try to improve the migration management by strengthening the institutional capacity of the national authorities in the Horn of Africa to facilitate a safe, orderly, and irregular migration, and to address human trafficking. If you want to learn more about what Germany is doing in the field of migration and displacement, you're invited to visit the GIZ stand that is on the first floor of this hotel, and I'm sure you will have a lot of breaks and meet and greet opportunities. Please talk to the people from GIZ. They are also listening, I think, to what you have to say from your experience and your knowledge. Probably because this is not so much known sometimes, I would like also to tell you that Germany is one of the biggest hosting countries in the world, refugee hosting countries. Of course, we are doing this from a very good economic level. We are the fourth biggest economy in the world, but we also face right now an economic crisis. We are going into a recession. We have inflation, like here in Kenya, with 10%. We have an energy crisis due to the war of Russia against Ukraine. But there's also a sense still of willingness to host refugees, to welcome refugees. For the time being, a lot of refugees and migrants, of course, are coming from Ukraine, about 800,000 alone this year since February. And so we are in this together. It's not that we come here and don't know this experience. Of course, we know it from another, how should I say, development level or industrialization level, but we have also the same challenges, and we also here to learn from you and hear from you how you cope with the situation. So, and for the German government, it is clear that we have to chip in, we have to show a lot of solidarity also. And one factor that is striking right now, of course, is the scarcity in food and the food insecurity, the growing food insecurity, especially in this region, but not only in this region. And Germany is now heading the so-called G7 group of big industrialized nations, and it was very important for Chancellor Scholz and also for Foreign Minister Baerbock to set aside 4 billion euros as seed money for a bigger funding effort of the industrialized world to help in this crisis. And for the last point, I would like to come back to what is happening in Ukraine and Russia, because it might look very far from here. And you might think also, now there's a war in Europe, we have a war in this region, instability, aggression, we know it, but what we see in Europe is really for us a very new and deep experience that a country is attacking another country. Russia attacked Ukraine on the 24th of February without any reason, and all the consequences that we feel right now up to this region here have their cause in this massive attack. And as you know, the war is still ongoing, and the efforts at least to organize a so-called grain deal to bring grain that is stocked in Ukraine to this region here was just nullified by the Russian authorities because they don't want to extend it. It was a deal, an agreement that was negotiated between the United Nations, Turkey, Russia, and Ukraine. I know that most of your countries voted together with Germany and the other European countries in the United Nations context also to criticize Russia for the annexation. But I just want to convey the message that we need your solidarity further in this. We have to show the world, and I think we also have to show the Russians that this policy has very, very high costs, and that it is unacceptable under international law and under what we think is a rules-based international system. War has no justification, neither in Africa nor in Europe. And this is very much linked, I think, to the situation here in the Horn of Africa with regard to inflation and with regard also to the rising costs of living. So with these remarks, I would like to wish you a very, very fruitful conference. We are looking forward to the results. As was said to the report, Germany will take over the chairmanship of the so-called Khartoum process, which brings together countries from the European Union, from the origin countries, from this region here of migration, but also the transit countries. And one of the main things that we will discuss in this process is also the link between climate change and migration. So we are very much looking forward to your discussions, to your deliberations, and also to your very concrete recommendations. My colleague from Addis Abeba, Florian Reli, will be here for you and take all your points and suggestions back to Addis Abeba and then to Berlin. So thank you very much for listening for me. Thank you very much for coming to Nairobi, and all the best for this conference.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you. I think we've heard for ourselves inclusion, the growing inequalities, the rise in food prices, and the reasons as to why, the failed rains, the attention to our vulnerable communities, the linkage, the solidarity between our refugees, those who are already there, the ones who are coming in, the host community, the support of our member governments, that is noted. We also had the need to bring out this, this to be informed by science. And with that, we want to hear from the representative from the universities, who is also part of our member state or IGAD steering committee, and that is Makerere University, the head of the Human Rights and Peace Center, Zahara Nampeo, to give us her remarks. Please give her a round of applause as she comes in. Thank you. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you very much, moderator. Kindly allow me to join the protocol already presented on the floor this morning. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I bring you greetings from Professor Umar Kakumba, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Makerere University and who also is a member of the steering committee he asked me to represent him at this very, very high-level conference. As we all know, human migration is an age-old phenomenon that stretches back to the earliest periods of human history, and today is a growing phenomenon in many parts of the world. Migration hasn't just started today, it started a long time ago. And in Africa in particular, armed conflict, poverty, inequality, and lack of sustainable livelihoods compel people to leave their homes for better circumstances. Migration has been the focus of intense political debate in recent years in matters such as intermigration, displacement, safe migration, and border management. So while most people have positive perceptions about it, as I'm sure there is a lot of consensus in this room this morning, there are also many misconceptions and concerns. But regardless of the negativity that may come with migration and displacement, especially within host communities, it is essential to have strong policies in place to support communities in need, such as those of displaced communities, and to further fill the gap between policies and implementation so as to create an equitable foundation upon which, as an African community, we can boast of unity. We call it Ubuntu, of a community that comes in to support each other in times of need. Because as we know, communities constitute the foundation of our Africanness. We must therefore work hard to aspire for equity and inclusion of all those that are in need. I speak from a point where I know the implications of migration. Few countries occupy as prominent a position in contemporary debates on migration in Africa as does Uganda, where Mackay University is situated. Uganda ranks high among the world's top refugee hosts, coming in third with an estimated 1.5 or so million refugees, and is the largest refugee hosting country in Africa. And at this point in time, the highest number of refugees in the country's history. By the end of May 2017, there were 30 refugees per every 1,000 inhabitants in Uganda. And with scarce resources, you know what that means. As Mackay University, as an academic institution, we are very much concerned about societal problems and the challenges that are posed with issues such as migration, and we are focused on how to harness our academic resources to address these societal challenges. We recently celebrated our centennial anniversary. We made 100 years of existence, 1922 to 2022. And the theme of our celebrations was leveraging 100 years of excellence in building a transformed society. As academia, we are part of society, and we therefore see and know that we have a role to play in influencing discourse on migration and displacement, because these affect people's lives and shape society. And it should come as no surprise that we integrate migration studies in several courses at the university, both in undergraduate as well as graduate level at the university. Therefore, as Mackay University, we venerate our role in research, and in particular on this issue of migration and displacement, for providing objective evidence and reviews of current policy on inclusion, targeting vulnerable and marginalized groups, in our case, the displaced. And we see it as important to incorporate equity and inclusion into all our action plans. These, most important, to be informed by evidence, and not only just evidence, but real people's lived experiences collected through research as one way of ensuring social cohesion. All the policies that we enact should be responsive to people's needs. Thus, whereas migration can never be eliminated because it is sometimes inevitable, as I mentioned earlier, due to armed conflict, the search for better opportunities and the like, it comes with potential challenges, especially for the displaced persons, and any action to make the lives of the affected better and improve their inclusion into society is much appreciated. We are therefore excited about all the papers and the research that is going to be presented in the conference this time round. I take this opportunity to appreciate IGAD and all the partners who have supported this conference, which is discussing a very pertinent issue that is affecting the African continent. It is important that as African continent, we generate our own research and evidence to suit the people that are displaced and be responsive to their needs. And therefore, the conversations at this meeting are very important. I recommit Makerere University to work with and support the initiatives and the consensus that will be agreed upon during this meeting. I thank you very much, and I wish you good deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Zahra. I think we've heard of the Ubuntu concept, our Africanness, and that migration is inevitable. Therefore, our academia needs to focus on how we link this. And Makerere University, Dr. Zahra has talked about research and migration and what they are doing in that front. And with that, I want to welcome our chair, Dr. Musa Ali, from the government of the Republic of Sudan, and who is the Commissioner for Refugees. Let's give him a round of applause as he comes in. Thank you. Dr. Commissioner Musa, please feel welcome.
Excellency, representatives of member states of IGAD, Excellencies, Dr. Fathiya Alwan, the Director of Health and Social Development of IGAD, representing the Executive Secretary of IGAD in this conference, and Excellency, the representative of Government of Kenya, my friend, the Commissioner of Refugees in Kenya, and representatives of the IGAD partners, without naming them, all of those who are here and not here, and also the academia, all of them, and as well as the media and their participants of the conference, all of you. I would say a very good morning for you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed, we are here today to attend the IGAD Third Scientific Conference on Migration and Displacement, with the theme Inclusion and Social Cohesion, Connecting Research, Data and Policy. It is, to my understanding, it is a noble task for all of us. It is a noble task for all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of the conference indicates that there are researches conducted and results or resulted into data and information, and the main task of this conference is to thoroughly and interactively discuss so as to come up with results that will be informed, the results that will inform the design of policies, strategies, and plans at IGAD as a region and the member countries to positively address the issues associated with migration and displacement. For this reason, I say that this is a notable and noble task for us to do today. And the theme is also indicates that the deliberations in this conference, as usual, is scientific, but have to be geared towards producing results that serve the purpose, the purpose which, to my understanding, is creation of conditions that can certainly serve the social and economic inclusion of the people who move to their host countries, communities, wherever they decide to settle, temporarily or permanently. So we have a lot to do in our deliberations, and we have to be guided by these guidelines, which is the theme. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to appreciate the multifaceted composition of the participation or the participant of this conference. It is multifaceted. That will enable and enrich the discussion. There are researchers, decision makers or policy makers representing the IGAD as a secretariat and member states, representatives of the development partners are here, and the representatives of civil society organizations are here, and the private sector is also here, as well as some other stakeholders on the issues of migration and displacement. So this multifaceted membership of this conference will enable us to have a richful discussion. I also would like to appreciate the immense role played by the steering committee to come up with the conference, with the comprehensive scene of the conference as presented in the program guide. Is our folders, is a program guide, and this reflects the immense role the steering committee have played. I understood that unfortunately, I understood that one of the steering committee members is not able to attend the conference because of illness. I wish her quick and durable recovery. My appreciation goes to IGAD Secretariat for identifying the migration and displacement issues as a priority agenda for the year 2022 and taking the initiative to organize this conference. Appreciations also go to the IGAD partners for their financial and technical support to IGAD to convene this conference. The appreciation also goes to the researchers who decided to conduct the researches on the issues of the conference and availed the materials for the deliberation discussions during these coming 3 days. I also want to highlight that the member states are eagerly waiting for the final results of the conference, and thus I urge the Secretariat to take this into consideration, to as soon as possible to share the results the report of the results of this conference so as at least to guide the member states to do their needful actions. I would like to express my sincere thanks to the Republic of Kenya for hosting the conference and providing the needed support. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, I thank you all for listening and wish you very fruitful deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Ali. Apology, before we invite our host, we would like to invite Mr. Justin McDermott, the Deputy Regional Director, IOM, representing the East Central Africa region, to give us his remarks. Then we would invite our host, Commissioner Mwanza. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Honorable Chair from the Government of Sudan, guest of honor and our host from the Government of Kenya, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. The Eastern Horn of Africa is host to one of the most complex migration and displacement patterns in the world. Madame Fatia already mentioned the vast displacement and migration figures of the region, being one of the largest hosts of displaced people in the world, and host to a quarter of all international migrants in Africa. This mobility continues to be triggered by a combination of insecurity and conflict, harsh climatic conditions, and public health emergencies, in addition to socioeconomic drivers and more traditional seasonal factors. The eastern route from the Horn of Africa towards the Arabian Peninsula, which normally has the largest number of migrants each year, saw a rise of 71% in movements in 2021 compared to the same period last year, the year before. Migrants' arrival from the Horn of Africa to Yemen have more than tripled compared to the same period in 2021, as youth from our region desperately tried to reach Saudi Arabia or other Gulf countries in search for jobs or better opportunities. This represents almost half of the pre-COVID-19 volumes when there was a sharp drop in movements. This means we can probably expect figures to continue rising. Meanwhile, as we heard from His Excellency the Ambassador of Germany, the Horn of Africa is facing one of the most severe droughts, with more than 18.5 million people acutely food insecure in Djibouti, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia. Nearly 70% of the IGAD region comprises arid and semi-arid lands, which are prone to recurrent droughts and are inhabited by approximately 230 million people, mostly pastoral and agro-pastoral communities who depend on livestock production. In the context of resource scarcity and livelihood losses, we've also seen an increase in localized conflict and the risks of gender-based violence and early child marriage on the rise. IOM's displacement tracking matrix show early migration patterns to areas that do receive rainfalls, and where, as a consequence, pastures are expected to faster. Having said this, migration holds immense potential for regional development. Free movement development agenda of IGAD and the AU's development efforts, expressed in its Agenda 2063 and the African Continental Free Trade Area, and as is very familiar in this room, the adoption of the Free Movement of Persons Protocol by IGAD last year. Unleashing the potential of migration and regional integration must therefore be at the heart of the socioeconomic recovery efforts. As member states and migrants grapple with the economic downturn and lost livelihoods that have followed in the footsteps of COVID, the current food crisis, and other effects of the Ukraine crisis mentioned by His Excellency the Ambassador of Germany. For this, we need effective regional cooperation and reimagining approaches to respond to the needs and vulnerabilities of migrants and displaced persons. The theme of this year's conference, inclusion and social cohesion, connecting research, data, and policy, comes timely as it's instrumental for facilitating mobility that is safe, orderly, and regular, and for ensuring migration contributes to the development of people and nations. By bringing together academics, practitioners, and policymakers, I hope will help us expand the evidence base and, as Dr. Sarah suggested, promote an African narrative on migration and help shine a light on good practices from many of you, the member states in the region, that can help policymakers and practitioners alike. IOM is delighted to have the opportunity to continue partnering with IGAD on this scientific conference, including by being part of the steering committee, submitting research papers, and now to join Madame Fatia in the chair and our host and the development partners on the panel. The conference builds on an excellent partnership between our two organizations, which was further strengthened last year as we signed a revised MOU, which includes cooperation on data and research. Areas of cooperation, we partner in the multi-agency technical working group with IGAD on the migration data, and we're proud to partner with IGAD in the production of the State of Migration in the Eastern Horn of Africa report, which explores the mobility dimensions of regional integration. This report will be co-published by IGAD, IOM, and the East African community, and it covers different dimensions of regional integration that can foster mobility, from border management to labor mobility, from health to digitalization, from trade under the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement to gender, from the Global Compact for Migration to climate-induced migration. To advance policy discussions, IOM supports the IGAD regional consultative process on migration, and IGAD is part of the Regional Ministerial Forum on Migration. His Excellency, the Ambassador of Germany, mentioned our partnership in the Better Migration Management Program. These platforms and policy discussions are instrumental for efforts to improve the governance of migration. They have the potential to advance inclusion and social cohesion and expand access to labor markets with decent working conditions. In July this year, His Excellency President Museveni joined His Excellency Salva Kiir, hosting an interministerial conference on migration, environment, and climate change. This conference, which benefited from partnership with IGAD and the EAC, resulted in the Kampala Declaration on Migration, Environment, and Climate Change, with concrete commitments from member states in the region and calls to the parties of the conference to effectively include mobility dimensions when discussing migration, with a focus on adaptation, loss and damages, financing and transfer of technology as they meet at COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh the next couple of weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, this IGAD conference is a milestone to give voice to important studies from the region, and we commend IGAD for the vision of driving this conference. In closing, I'd therefore like to thank IGAD, the Secretariat, for organizing this important conference, all the contributors, scholars and donors alike, member states and other participants, and I look forward to reading the outcomes. Asante sana.
Fatuma, Your Excellencies, the Chair for IGAD, the German Ambassador to Kenya, the IGAD Secretariat, led by the Director Health, Madam Fatia, distinguished sessions which are represented here. Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. And finally, bonjour. Thank you today at the third IGAD Scientific Conference on Migration and Displacement. This meeting is of great importance to all the member states, as migration and displacement affects each and one of us as countries of origin, or countries of transit, or host countries. This meeting presents an opportunity for member states, partners, grants, and host communities that focus on various sectors affecting the migrants. This year's theme and host communities. I am encouraged by the composition of the participants, who include a 360 view of the needs for migrants and host communities, and thereby formulate. Over a number of years, each country has worked for to better its migration management systems. However, this notwithstanding, more can still be done to ensure safe and orderly migration, as migrants still face some tremendous challenges. Methods of inclusion and ways that can be achieved in the areas of social, economic, and legislation. The research findings that will be presented here today are very instrumental, as they will assist the governments to develop better policies that are, and ladies and gentlemen, quite a number of emerging issues in this region. Keep moving from one area to another. Some of them are keep moving from one area to another. Some of them are natural, others are man-made. And I always wonder whether we could also delve further into the researches on human behavior and forcing others to move from there. I would like to underscore the importance of data in informing development of relevant and thank you very much.
Commissioner.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner, we want you to tell us if we can proceed with the meeting. Thank you, those medical words. Can we put our hands together again, a very big one? Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think that brings us to the end of the first session of the day. And before we proceed to invite all of you near communication address, we do also have a media session with the high table. I know Ambassador and Commissioner have some other engagement, but we want to have 10-15 minutes of your time to talk to the media. I would want to require a coffee break. The high table, we want you to lead us for this group photo. So